Grace be unto you and peace from God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. Good morning. And welcome to our service today. A couple of announcements that I'd like to make. First of all, I can welcome anyone who is here, who is visiting. You're an important part of our worship service and our worshiping community. Please make yourself known to us afterwards. The book in three ways. And please join us in our coffee hour as well. A couple of announcements. Linda and I will be on vacation for the next couple of weeks, 2.5 weeks. And so if you need to get in touch with the pastor during that time, you can call Nancy Jennings or Holly Hale Thompson. You know her probably better than Holly Hale Davis Thompson. And she'll be the one preaching the next two Sundays. And also I just wanted to remind everyone that the Bible study, the summer Bible study, seems to be going very well. And if you are interested, it's still possible certainly to join it. They meet after the coffee hour in the first classroom off the fellowship hall. Any other announcements that anybody needs to make or would like to make before we begin? If not, then let us bring our hearts and minds together and worship God. Please rise for the Comforter's call to worship. Say amen for the confession and pardon as well. The Lord is faithful in all His words and gracious in all His deeds. The Lord opens His hand, satisfying the desire of every living thing.
The Lord is just in all His ways, and kind in all His doings.
The Lord is near to all who call on Him, to all who call on Him in truth.
The Lord fills the desire of all who hear Him. He hears their cry and saves them.
Lord, there are things that burn as we for which I am so sorry. There are things that I know are in the name of heaven on my heart. I ask you for response, not for the loving or Jesus to serve. Help me not to dwell on these in the past, which I can't change, but to accept your forgiveness, and to act or respond differently in the future. Lord, help me to acknowledge and to accept your forgiveness, also for the sins of our congregation, our nation, and our world. Amen. And now hear the words of assurance in Jesus Christ. You are forgiven. Hallelujah. Praise be to God. Amen. Peace of Christ be with you.
And also with you.
Please take a moment to share Christ's This time I'd like to invite the children who are with us to please come up. All right. Well, how are you today? That's good. I couldn't find it in the house, but my wife has a T-shirt. She didn't wear it this morning, but she has a T-shirt that has big writing on it, and it says, "If you can be anything you want, choose to be kind." Like that? We usually think of it choosing to be whatever we want. It's something we do when we grow up, right? Something we do, but that one stops us in our tracks. And it made me think also, I thought of it when I was watching a movie last week. And then I went to see another movie. This one was about the Pope. You know who the Pope is? No. Well, one day you will. Our church doesn't have a Pope. The Pope is the head of what church? Does anybody know what church the Pope is the head of? The Catholic Church, the Roman Catholic Church. And it's big. There are a lot of people in the Roman Catholic Church. A lot more Catholics than there are Presbyterians, a lot more. And but the Pope that we have now, his name, does anybody know his name? Pope Francis. He's the first Pope to ever come from the Americas, this side of the ocean. He comes from Argentina. He's the first Pope elected to be the head of the whole Roman Catholic Church from Latin America. He's from Argentina. And he's the first Pope. When a Pope is elected, they choose the name of the saint that they'll be called. And he chose St. Francis of Assisi. So his name is St. Francis. That's how we know him. And there was a movie time that we went and saw. And in that movie, one of the things that we kept emphasizing, especially when he was talking to young people, he was saying that being tender and gentle and kind is not a sign of weakness, but it's a sign of strength. It takes strength to be kind. It takes strength to be gentle with someone, especially if they're being difficult. It takes strength to be tender and to listen carefully to where they're coming from. Bullies they think they're showing strength, don't they? And they're pushing people around and being mean. But that's not strength, that's weakness. They really don't like themselves, and so they take it out on others. But it takes strength to be kind. Of course, that's also what Jesus taught us, to do unto others as we would have others do unto us. To be kind all the time. Is that easy to do? Not very easy. It's not very easy. It takes a lot of strength to be kind and patient and gentle all the time. Understand? But that's what Jesus came to tell us too. He wants us to be kind all the time. Understand that kind of stuff? Lord, we thank you for these children and for all of the ways that you have helped them to grow and to learn about you and your love. We thank you for all their teachers, for their parents, for their friends, their family, their aunts and uncles and grandparents, and we ask your blessing upon them throughout the rest of this summer as they continue to learn about you. We thank you for everyone who teaches us what it means to be kind and to show strength with kindness. And we pray in the name of the one who wants us to be kind all the time, Jesus Christ. We pray in his name and we pray as we follow. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. Scripture passage today is from the Gospel according to John. It's from chapter 6, and it's the first 21 verses of chapter 6. It's two stories, and we know them both very well, I'm quite sure. After this, Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias. A large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" Now he said this to test Philip, for he himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "Well, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little." One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There is a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in the place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they began to say, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." When Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough, because a strong wind was blowing. When they had rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat, and they were terrified. But he said to them, "It is I, do not be afraid." Then they wanted to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the land toward which they were going. May the Lord bless to us the reading and the hearing of this holy word. Well, I have a question for you. How many miracles do you suppose are recorded in the Bible? Well, dozens, certainly, if not maybe more. The Gospels credit Jesus with about 3 dozen miracles, but there are certainly many others as well. The Old Testament is full of it, and it even begins with the miracle of creation. And then there's a great cluster of miracles around Moses and the stories about him and the Exodus. God first got Moses' attention, you remember, with the burning bush, which was in flame, but the fire did not alter upon the bush at all. When Moses expressed concern about his personal ability to be the leader of the people of Israel, God told him to take the staff, which he carried in his hand, and throw it down on the ground. He did that, and as soon as he did it, it became a poisonous snake. And God said, this was the big test, reach down and grab the snake by the tail. Now, I don't know if you've ever handled snakes. I've handled quite a few. In the swamps of Louisiana, where I used to camp, we would go out and catch water moccasins. But we knew enough not to grab them by the tail, because they would whip around and bite you. So you grab them right behind the head, you grab them by the neck. Moses lived in the desert, so surely he knew about poisonous snakes, and yet he did exactly what God told him to do. He grabbed that snake by the tail, because immediately it turned back into a wooden staff. But the miracles didn't stop there in the Old Testament, did they? There were the 10 plagues that finally convinced Pharaoh to let the Israelites go. There was the manna with which God fed the Israelites. There was the water coming out of the rock to slake their thirst. The miracles just kept coming. And there were many more miracles in both the Old and New Testament. So many we can't name them all here. The question is this: what is a miracle? What constitutes, makes something a miracle? Do they still happen? Have you ever witnessed a miracle? Do you know anybody who's ever witnessed a miracle? Do you believe in miracles? Most people, when asked that question, tend to say something that implies, well, God has a hand in miracles. That a miracle is God at work in the world. Of course, if that's what a miracle is, then everything's a miracle. Is it not? Because God is actively present in every single thing that happens every moment all over the world. So what then is a miracle? You might say, and I'm sure you've heard this before, a miracle is something that God does that contradicts the natural laws of the universe. Many of you have probably heard of a very famous motivational guru named Tony Robbins. He offers these seminars that are very extensive to inspire people about mind over matter. And his favorite thing to have the members of participants in his seminars do to prove to themselves the power of mind over matter, that they can do anything they decide to do, is he has them walk across a 15-foot long, 3 feet wide path, tray of burning coals. These coals are heated to a temperature of 1,200 to 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. They're red hot and 15 feet long. And so people in his seminars walk across them barefoot. And by far most of the participants in his seminars do just that. They walk across with no ill effects. But of course, once in a while, far less than 1% of all those who try it, they feel pain. And they might even get a blister on the bottom of their feet. So in all the years that he's been doing it, and over 100,000 people have, in his seminars, very few, have walked across that bed of coals. Most of them never experiencing any pain whatsoever. One time, however, 6 years ago, you may remember this, in Dallas, Texas, he had one of his big seminars, almost 7,000 people in the seminar, and they walked across these burning coals. 21 of the people, 21 felt pain, and someone saw someone, complaining of pain, immediately called 911, and the ambulance came, and therefore those people had to go to the hospital. And a big to-do was made of it, and the media got wind of it. The next day, all across the country, the headlines read, dozens burned by walking across hot coals. You can Google it today. What's his name? Tony Robbins, thank you. Tony Robbins and hot coals. And you'll see articles, over 30 articles, about those few people who felt pain. None of them left the seminar. They all went to the hospital, were immediately released, and went back. They had second-degree burns, but they healed. And not one article about the 6,000 who walked across the cold unaffected. Why do you suppose that is? The media, of course, wants to emphasize always the negative, for one thing, but also they don't know how to handle something that falls outside of their understanding. So they just ignore it, basically. Because it couldn't be explained by the laws of physics or the laws of anatomy that they understood. Again, the question, what is a miracle? Do you believe in miracles? So how often would you expect to find the word miracle or miracles in the Bible? Anybody want to venture a guess? Of course, it depends on the Bible you read, the translation. Like the NSRV, NRSV that we use, that I just read to you, in that Bible there are the word miracles, and it's always plural, only appears 11 times throughout the entire, evenly distributed in Old and New Testament. And not one of those 11 references are to Jesus or anything he did. In the Old Testament, miracles is a vague, general term used to describe the wonders that God does. In the New Testament, miracles are things done by the apostles or by other believers, like you and me. Not anything Jesus did. The Bible refers to Moses parting the Red Sea, and to Jesus turning water into wine, feeding the 5,000, and walking on water, not as miracles, but as signs. Signs. They're called signs because their purpose is to point beyond themselves to God's presence and action right in the midst of everyday life. There are really no such things as miracles as most people today think of them. There aren't. Because these seemingly incredible events aren't, in fact, contradicting natural laws, but are simply making use of other natural laws of the universe that you and I are not aware of. There's a difference. Unfortunately, in order to learn more about these other natural laws, we need to learn to understand ourselves better, including our purpose for being here and the nature and will of God who made us. This is the purpose of religion. The word religion comes from ligare, the same word we get ligament from. It means to connect, reconnect, to understand how all things work together. Does this mean that we should ignore such things as gun control, climate change, and laws about same-gender marriage and focus only on ourselves and our relationship with God? Absolutely not. There are two things that we should focus on if we hope to move forward in our understanding of ourselves, the world and its laws, and God. The first thing is to do everything in our power to take care of this world and to help alleviate the suffering of others, no matter who they are or what the cause of their suffering is. This is the practical side of loving God and neighbor. It involves working for laws to promote equality and freedom and peace and justice for every human being on the face of the earth. Therefore, politics is important, whether it's the politics of our national government or our denomination. This means we need to write letters to our representatives, listen to the news, and urge our friends to vote for candidates whose values and programs will most benefit the poor, the sick, and the suffering, not only those close to us, but all around the world. That's the first thing. We're practical. The second thing we need to do is to do everything we can to understand who we are as human beings and the real nature of this universe that we're a part of, why we're here in the first place, and what are our capacities of our minds, our hearts, our imaginations, and our wills. What did Jesus mean when he said that everything he does, we can do also, and we can even do greater things than he did? That's what he tells us. What are the limits of our ability to love others, and how can we increase our capacity for love? This second task involves both the study and the practice of what we traditionally call religion: prayer, Bible study, meditation, and regular spiritual exercise. It also involves increasing our knowledge and understanding through science and technology, which some may find surprising. But these two things are not separate from one another. I don't pretend to understand what this particle that you read about in Science magazine called Higgs boson is all about. Although I've read a lot about it, still don't understand it. But it has to do with our understanding how things work in this universe, and perhaps discovering laws that we don't yet know about. Also, archaeological studies about the origin of humans on this planet can help us. All of this has to do with better understanding who we are, where we come from, where we're going, and what we can do to get there. The second task has to do with both expanding our own knowledge and helping to teach that knowledge to others. Two tasks, then. One takes place primarily outside of us. It focuses on action in the world around us, on getting things done. The other task takes place primarily within ourselves and has to do with our knowledge and understanding of the world around us, ourselves and God, and God's will for both us and the world. Both have openly to do with God and our capacity to love, but both are necessary. My experience with most people tend to emphasize one of these two tasks or the other, and to allow themselves to believe that it's more important than the other. This is true for individuals, but also for congregations. If you're like me, and I believe most modern enlightened people, it's easy to get stuck on the first of these two tasks, which often becomes self-defeating. In the process of focusing on helping individuals and changing the politics of the world itself seems divided into two camps: those that are with you and those that are against you. You want to love everyone, but in the process you find yourself loving some and hating others. You begin to see those with different agendas and values as bad or even evil. And of course there are many who choose to emphasize the second task, which has also become self-defeating. For God's love is always directed outward to everyone, and God's will is always aimed at helping those who are suffering and those most in need of help. But trying to focus on God and self alone is always a dead end. The so-called miracles of Jesus, such as the feeding the 5,000 and numerous healings and walking on water, were not, I can't say this too much, were not exaggerations of events that can be explained by what we know as Newtonian physics, such as you've heard the unintentional potluck version of the feeding of 5,000. Everybody really got a secret basket with food. They brought it out and shared, and that's all well and good. It wouldn't have been invited if that's what happened. That isn't what happened. What happened is what it says happened. It was not according to laws we understand, but it was according to laws that exist in this universe. And they had a purpose, these miracles, a twofold purpose. By healing those who were ill and by feeding those who were hungry, Jesus was certainly showing the outward compassion that is at the heart of God's will. But at times, they were intended to stretch people's understanding and imaginations and themselves of this world, themselves, and of God. They were intended to help us see that there is more to this universe than meets the eye. Changing the healthcare laws and the tax laws and the gun laws are important because they affect how we relate to each other in this country and in the world. But doing this alone is not going to solve anything. So long as people hate one another and don't see others as their own brothers and sisters, their own mothers and fathers, their own sons and daughters, and treat them that way, love them, and care for them like that. That can only happen as people ponder the wonders of God's love, meditate, and reach deep within themselves to find the love of God that resides there. Jesus wants us to change ourselves in order that we are capable of loving everyone all the time. And He wants us to help teach others about their deepest self so they too will learn to love. I believe that events like the recent World Cup of soccer provide each of us with a great opportunity, especially because the United States was not in the tournament. Because we didn't have a team competing, we could practice loving each and every person in the world by genuinely rooting for all of the athletes of all the different countries, appreciating what they're doing on the field, but also what they had to do to get there, and to pray with our whole being that the nations of this world will learn to get along and promote the health and well-being of each and every person in this world. It is, after all, what the Church of Jesus Christ is all about. And we can do it, for Christ is in us, and we are in Him. We are well off in God, the Almighty, in God's holiness, always. Amen. Come now to our second hymn, which is Congregational Choice, and there's someone who has chosen John.
835, just a closer walk with thee.
What was the first number?
835.
835. 835. Okay. And just a closer walk with thee. names of people in our church community and then ask if you have any others that you'd like to lift up. You may know, many of you know Dick and Pat Watts. I don't know if you know that last year they moved to a retirement community outside of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And just recently, Pat, who's been failing mentally, is been placed into a memory unit, which is part of the retirement community. Hopefully Dick will make a trip up here to his house in Prague sometime this summer to be able to see him. Craig Smith is the son of Jamie Holt Smith and the nephew of Betsy Doyle, who many of you know. And he is struggling with a very, very bad case of Lyme disease, which is life-threatening to him. So we've been asked to lift up him in prayer. Also, Bob Long, who you know, has been in and out of the hospital throughout the summer. He was in again this past week, and he's now out again. He's home, but needs to stay in our prayers. Betty Donahue, that's a name that many of you know, and some of you I'm sure don't, but she's been a part of this church for many, many years. She was in the hospital for the last few weeks, and I didn't even know about it. I'm sure a lot of people didn't know about it. But she's home now. Those who know that she had struggled with cancer, and it's been metastasized throughout her body now, and she was sent home from the hospital. She refused further treatment because it really wouldn't do very much, and she's at home with hospice care. Her son and her daughter are staying with her throughout the time that she has left, which is not very long, as well as her husband. So any of you who know her well, she would appreciate hearing from you at home. Helen Fitzsimmons is another one who hasn't been in church recently, and she is doing better. She's had some health issues, broke her foot, among other things, but she's been up and around, and she's hoping to get back to church for a while. Are there others that you'd like to lift up? Yes, thank you.
My sister Phyllis asked me to say a prayer, and I asked her to courage to change the things you can. Is the best way of
The courage to change the things we can. Okay. Yes.
You know, my sister.
Your sister?
My sister, exactly what she said.
Same thing. Okay.
Her name is Lucille.
Lucille.
a friend of mine lost her mother this week, totally down and lost her mother in Colorado. So very clear
Kelly and her family. Any others? Now then let us pray. Lord of life and light and love, hear the prayers of this congregation and of each and every person who is part of it in any way, and each one who is here this morning, whether or not they're numbered. You've given this church much, and as Jesus reminds us, from those to whom much has been given, much will be required. Lord, you put us all on this planet together to live in peace and harmony with one another. Yet we treat those who are different from ourselves with suspicion and even with feelings of ill will. You tell us not to judge others, but there is little in this life that we enjoy more than standing in judgment over others. We judge them by the color of their eyes and color of their hair. We judge them by the shape of their body. We judge them by the way they worship you and by the names they know you by. We judge them by the color of their skin. We judge them by how tall or how short they are. We judge them by the language they speak. And if they speak the same language we do, we judge them by how they use it. We judge them by how much money they have. We judge them by the clothes they wear. We judge them by their sexual identity and their sexual orientation. judge them by the choices they make. We judge them by their parents and by their children. Lord, our purpose on this earth is so simple. You've given us your own Son, Jesus Christ, who has made it so plain that we are simply to love you and to love others, all the time. But knowing what is right is not enough, O God. In Christ, you also showed us how to live and how to relate to those around us. Yet even so, we refuse to do what we know to be right and take our cues from the culture around us, which is dominated by television. And television is directed by those who sponsor it. So our values are being shaped by those whose goals are to accumulate wealth, which is the exact opposite of what you have taught us through your Son, Jesus. Lord, we need your help. Through the power of your Holy Spirit, give us the strength we need to do what we know is right, and not to bow to the pressure of all the voices around us. Hear our prayers also for all of those anywhere on this planet who are suffering for any reason, especially children. Give strength to those who are working for peace and reconciliation, whether within their own families, or within their own communities, or within their government, or among nations. And we pray for all of those in Laos who lost their loved ones and their homes because of the failed dam this past week. Hear our prayers for our church and for the pastor nominating committee as they work on our behalf to find the pastor you are preparing for this church's leadership. Hear our prayers as well for all who are on our prayer list and for those whose names we've mentioned out loud this morning. And hear our prayers for those who we lift up to you silently at this time, because we hold them in our hearts. And finally, Lord, we pray for ourselves. Bless this coming week and all the things you are calling us to do and to be. And all this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. At this time, I would like to invite David Santos, who is with us this morning, to come up. He's been with us before to speak about a wonderful program called Workers Without Wheels.
Good morning. Since 2012, we've supported a program called Workers Without Wheels through Pastor Dwight Walter of Congregational Church in Hatchell. As a bike shop owner and cycling enthusiast, I participate with Pastor Walter in accepting, rehabbing, and donating used bicycles and parts to people who lack transportation and or money to get to and from work, or school, or any viable activity. Since 2012, we've given away, now counting almost 900 bicycles of various conditions and many, many volumes of parts to people who need them. And this last year, after speaking here at your church, one of your members very graciously made available to us a large volume of bicycles that were part of her family's long-closed bike shop. And so we thank Cheryl Van Tile for that, because we've been able to bless many, many people, both young and old, with bicycles. And so I just encourage you to continue to pray for those who need bicycles as their primary form of transportation, and continue to support the ministry outreach that we are doing, and likewise being done by many others around the country as well. And it's a viable and active and very fulfilling way to support other people in their need to get around. Thank you very much.
Wow.